Alright, what up? What up? This is my first video of 2024 and got some things coming on this channel here. Not my first walk though of 2024. So I am Wesley Jackson Wade. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a neurodivergent black man who has lived in the South of the US predominantly most of my life. Did live in California for a little bit at one point. Anyway, so for those of y'all who are new to the channel, which is probably most people, because there's not a lot of folks who look at this channel yet, and that really doesn't matter. But for those of y'all who are new, my walk with me videos originated as a way for me to help overcome perfectionism, which is one of the biggest enemies in my life and one of the biggest enemies in a lot of people's lives, especially in the empire of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Perfectionism is the glue between those systems, one of the pieces of cohesion between those systems that keeps them going. I am trying to finish a dissertation. I will finish my dissertation by the end of this year so I can officially be Dr. Wesley Jackson Wade, working on my PhD right now. So anyway, before I start rambling on, what I was trying to say is I do not edit these videos because these videos are about overcoming perfectionism and keeping it a buck. And I always keep it a buck, even if I don't have any money. So recently, New Year's Day, that is the wedding anniversary, right? And so that was 13 years for the wife and I of marriage. We have been together for 19 years. I don't really put a whole bunch of stuff out there in terms of like family content about my family and things of that nature, but every once in a while, for some occasions, I do. And I did recently for this past New Year's Day of 2024. And I put this little thing on Twitter just talking about recognize Black love and all that wonderful stuff. So there was a bunch of really wonderful responses. By the way, Twitter can be a wonderful place depending on who you follow and how intentional you are about managing your algorithm. If you're an MCU fan, the sacred timeline, you should look at your algorithm like the sacred algorithm. And it makes your social media experience much more pleasant. But the issue becomes, because it's more pleasant, you get more dopamine and you stay on longer. Anyway, there was one comment in there. Someone said, I think their name was TJ. I'll put the little thing right there, a little screenshot, had said they were going through a bad breakup and was looking, so, a little out of breath. I haven't had a big walk in a while. It's going to be like a 4 or 5 mile walk. So, said they were going through a bad breakup and was looking for 13 pieces of advice. And I was like, I don't know if I got 13. And they was like, well, just some. And I was like, that's dope. So I talked to the wife. I might be able to get her on here. She don't like getting on here, which is understandable. She's a licensed attorney. She does a lot of work here in the area in which we live and stuff. Anyway, I just don't want people to think I'm on the Steve Harvey program to reference Cat Williams. Oh, all right. I'm gonna get all over the place. It's the first thing from 2024. There's been a lot going on in the world. So anyway, TJ, right? TJ had mentioned 13 things. So I got some stuff. It's not gonna be 13 things. I don't know how many it is, but I was thinking about this while I was walking, right? So I'm gonna break this down in 2 ways. I'm gonna break it down in stuff that I want fellas to hear, like from a fella specifically, from a man's perspective, right? And this is going to be for all men, but it is specifically targeted at brothers, at black men, right? But it is applicable to all men. Then I'm going to say some stuff that I want women to hear from the perspective of a man, of a brother, of a married man, father, 2 daughters, blah, 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 whatever, right? So first, for the fellas, from a brother, I had to learn how to understand my own context. And I really had to take some time to learn women a lot better, women's history. So I'm gonna give this to you the same way that a lot of us black and brown folks and Asian folks will understand is often we want white people to do their own work in understanding the issues that we go through as people who experience marginalization, right? So it's the same thing when we talk about gender. This should be really obvious to folks, right? Obviously, there is sexism in the world. Obviously, me as a man does not experience sexism. However, I'm a black man, and my experience is very different. Going to get back to that later. So I had to do some reading. I had to understand some more. A book I would really recommend is Thick. It's a collection of essays written by Dr. Tressie McNeil Cottom. Amazing book. She's super brilliant. She's super accessible, and just that everyday brilliance that like so many Southern black women I know, because I grew up around Southern black women, had, like they were absolutely brilliant, and they would just give you this brilliance in just a simple speak that anyone could understand if you were listening, right? Thick is a great book. It's a collection of essays. It's not going to be designed to give you a specific lesson on women as a man or to a man, right? But it is just gonna help you see how women think. Like, you should read things by women that's expressing their thoughts, their desires, their emotions without men being in the picture so you can understand them better. We will sit here as men and like get into all this sci-fi and stuff, which I love, and all this content we love, and things like Star Wars. We're like, oh man, General Thrawn, he's this amazing tactician because he'll even study the art of his enemies. And we're like, whoa, that's brilliant. Okay. Don't you want to be an amazing person in your relationship, right? So if he's giving that much energy to his enemies, how much energy are you giving to understand the person you want to be in a relationship with, right? And your ability to understand women and them goes back to understanding your own context, right? I am really out of breath. And I don't edit these. Okay. And so that can be hard. The context thing can be hard. I know cameras all over the place and stuff, but this is what it is. Context can be hard, especially for black men, because we have such a different experience, right? I'm 5'11", 220 pounds. I have been as heavy as 265 pounds, and I wear it well because I'm pretty muscularly built. I'm about the same size as Mike Tyson, right? So I'm not huge. I ain't little either, right? So I walk through the world having some different experiences as a larger black man. And I also have to recognize that some of the women I'm with, especially, or were with, because not with, not with any women now. Some of the women I was with, regardless of race, is going to interpret that a certain way. If I care about them, I need to understand that. But I also need to understand how that impacts me, how that affects my mental health, what that does to my temperament, right? Racism is real. Maybe you grew up in poverty. Maybe you have a disability, whether visible or invisible. Like, these things impact the way that we navigate the world and see the world. And we should understand that and how it's affected us. Understanding your own context, understanding your partner, right, and their context will help you have a better relationship. And that's just a different way of saying be vulnerable, because you can't be vulnerable if you don't love yourself unconditionally and love the other person that you're with unconditionally. You can't do that unless you know yourself. And the way that masculinity is set up, it's set up as the supreme identity. That's what patriarchy means. It's masculine supremacy, right? It's set up in a way that limits men from a full range of emotions. And we don't understand that privilege that comes with patriarchy actually hurts us. And for black men, it's hard because, like I said, my size, I'm not huge, but I'm not small. And so in the world of men, I was a strong athlete. I was a linebacker. I did a bunch of stuff in other sports and fought in tournaments and all this stuff. And I was a bad dude. I'm a black man. And a black man that's a bad dude is a threat, right? So black men, we have this very wild experience. And that reminds me of the next stuff, like for the women, is I want women to understand that men, we have it rough, right? I believe that women have it worse than men. Now, I'm talking as a black man who is married to a black woman. And I've dated women before my wife who were of other races, white women, Puerto Rican women, Indian women, Asian women. I mean, look, I ain't a bad looking brother, okay? All right. But while I think all women are brilliant and beautiful and strong and have their unique aspects from their cultural backgrounds and stuff, I'm a black man. I was raised by black women. I love black women. There's a different kind of connection there for me. And I've had a lot of racist experiences in my life. So I really need to come home and be able to talk to someone who I don't have to explain racism to. And there's black people who need racism explained to them, okay? I was once one of those people like 25 years ago, right? There's white folks and other folks who really understand racism. I get it. That was just me, whether you call it a preference or a prejudice, whatever. So I'm brutally honest, right? And so I'm married to a black woman and I love her. She has a very, very raw experience of the world. And so do I. When you look at stuff like wage gaps, right? Most categories, demographics of women earn more than black men, except for black women, except for, I think, Native American women and Latina women, right? Like, I think all other women earn more than black men, right? So black men have a very different experience. I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly. I think 1 out of 5 black men have experienced sexual assault at some point in their life, whether as children or adults. I have, okay? Like, we have a much different experience of the world. We are fetishized by people. Women, grown women, target us when we are kids for sexual pleasure. And because men were taught that sex is supposed to be a sign of how masculine you are, we think that it's great. I had a girlfriend in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. She was a junior in high school. She was 17. And I was like 13 years old, maybe 14, right? Right. But I was 5'11". I was 185 pounds in 8th grade. But I'm a 8th grade boy, right? That's not healthy. Stuff like that is not. She was a sister. She was fine though. And see, that's that mentality. Even right now, me as a mental health counselor am still over here trying to like justify, oh, she was fine though. She was, but like, that doesn't matter. It was still bad, right? So what I want from the woman's perspective of seeing a man is, if you have signed up for this relationship with this person, then you also got to see this man's context. And especially if you're with a black man, that context is raw as well. I actually do. I'm one of the maybe, 40 to 30% of brothers who firmly believe black women overall have it worse than black men. But we both at the bottom, baby. What's the point of arguing? Right? Like, I'm here for you. Sometimes that's hard when you're a black woman and you're at the bottom, because you also experience this abuse from black men in these other areas of misogynoir. And you're like, I need someone who gets it. And then you got this nigga at home who's like, I need my dinner on the table, right? My wife has always earned more money than me. That's probably going to change in the next few years, but she has always earned more money than me, right? I had to humble myself, had to learn a lot. Some books. Now, there's not a whole bunch of stuff written from the male perspective for men. One of my homeboys, I refer to him as Trey. He's on Twitter. I did a podcast episode with him. He's got a book out. I think it's called Refresh. He's a brother around the same age as me, a father, a husband, a mental health professional, an educator. My homeboy, Gary Taylor. Check out his book. I'll put some links in there, but it's about being a black man and working through your path, your trauma, your past, to understand who you are and move forward in your journey. Another book I like is one called Brother in the Bush, and it's written by Dr. Johnny Slaughter. It's not about masculinity specifically. It's a really short book, and it's kind of hard to find. I know the author. He was a brother in Baltimore who was a stock trader or something like that. And this tragic event happened, messed him up mentally. He had to take a break from the US, started rethinking masculinity and work, ended up changing careers. Dope book, great read. but it gives you some internal perspectives of the world of a man and a black man specifically. Two other books that I find essential for all humans, but especially relationships, is All About Love by Bell Hooks. And the best book ever about men was not written by a man. This is my opinion. It is The Will to Change, also written by Bell Hooks. And I think that all people, men, women, and non-binary folks need to read that book to help us understand loving ourselves unconditionally, the systems that we were in. What does love really mean, as opposed to the ethic of, like, there's the ethic of love, but then there's things like cathexis, which is just the provision of shelter and food. Yeah, you need that to be part of love, but that doesn't define love. You know, a lot of times, that's how a lot of men, especially, I'm not gonna say especially anybody, that's how a lot of men view love. Hey, I'm a man, I'm here, I'm present. Ain't that enough? No, no, it's not. It's not enough, right? So those are great books. I have gone on for a little over 16 minutes. And yeah, keep walking, keep living life. It's 2024. And we got more stuff coming. All right, y'all, peace.